Hi everyone, this is BritSimon. So I have a few minutes ago, I've seen this extension of the immigrant ban that was originally introduced on April 22nd. The ban was set to expire today. It was originally set for 60 days and was set to expire. And of course, Trump being Trump, they have now extended the ban. And both in terms of time and scope. So it's now the ban has been extended to expire on the end of this year, December 31st, 2020, and it could continue as necessary according to Trump. And it's all of the same conditions of the earlier ban, and then a few more visa classifications such as H1Bs, H2Bs, etc., Js and Ls. So these are work visas that he's adding to the immigrant classes, which includes DV lottery. So this is obviously, no doubt about it, it's extremely bad news for DV 2020 selectees. This does mean that no visas will be issued before the end of the year, unless this particular ban is challenged. Now, some of you may be aware that the ban was challenged in court. The April 22nd version of the ban was challenged in court by a lawyer by the name of Jim Hacking. I'm quite sure that he and other members of the legal profession are probably sharpening their knives right now to go and attack this ban even as we speak. I'm quite sure the AILA are on this, and ACLU, etc. They've probably already have plans to attack this ban. Clearly, this is a much longer, almost ongoing and almost permanent type of ban, as opposed to a temporary 60-day ban. And the original concept for the ban, that this somehow protects American workers, is really not logical. From an immigration point of view, it doesn't make sense. And now to limit H1Bs, etc., which are highly specialized visa classes for workers that America in the past has said that they have needed, that's obviously going to affect business in this country tremendously, and is in a sense an attack on industry and business in this country. It doesn't help business in this country, and so that just doesn't make sense. Trump's typical base, of course, is the lower end of the economic and intelligence scales. And so, they won't understand these things necessarily, and they won't really be affected by them. So, an L visa, for example, is an intercompany transferee. These are high-level executives coming with international companies. That's not competing with Trump supporters. Trump supporters are not moving in those circles typically. So the ban is there. What can we say about it? It's likely to be challenged. Whether it could be successfully challenged or not is a question. We have to just wait and see about that. But clearly, there's going to be additional time spent on messing around with this, which frankly we cannot afford. Simultaneously, the embassies are closed. They can't schedule appointments because the embassies are closed. We're not hearing about embassies reopening before the end of this month, let's say, and so even without this ban, it's unlikely that we'd have got many interviews scheduled in August. So we're really running out of time for DV 2020. And now this ban will also affect DV 2021, because if the ban is allowed to stay in place, at least the first 3 months of DV 2021 will be subject to this ban. And so, October, November, December interviews will either not take place, even if the embassies had reopened by that time, or they would take place, but the visas couldn't be issued. There's bound to be some confusion. I know people constantly question this about suspension and limitation on entry. We're going to have some people over the coming days that will read this order and talk about, well, this is limitation on entry. That doesn't mean they can't issue visas. Well, the reality is they don't issue visas that people can't use, and so it does suspend the issuance of visas as well as the entry of the visa holders. Now, if you previously were holding a visa from before the ban was implemented in April 22nd, if that visa is still valid, you're still able to enter the USA on that visa. Now, you may find that there may be travel restrictions in your country, and that might complicate things. In which case, you might not be able to move to actually enter the USA because of that. In that case, your visa could expire. It may already have expired. And so just talking to those people for a moment, if your visa has expired or is about to expire, your visa could, in theory, be extended even under the terms of this ban. And I'm saying that contrary to what I've said before, because I've seen visas issued or reissued or extended, you might say, during the course of this ban, right? So I think, and I can't be 100% certain, but I think those people that had previously been given a visa could now get an extension of their visa. And therefore those people would be okay, they would be able to enter. However, don't gamble on that. If you can enter, even if it's not comfortable for you to enter, even if you feel like you're taking a risk, then with traveling on airplanes and everything else, I do understand. But what I would say is take precautions, take care of your health, wash your hands, wear a mask, do what you can. But if you have a way of traveling, do take that opportunity. If you need to extend later, it may or may not be possible. So if it were me, if I were in that position, I wouldn't want to have that gamble, right? So that's the first thing. Those people that already held visas, they shouldn't need to worry at the time being, but take some sensible precautions and enter the USA to activate your visa if you can. If you are already holding on to a green card from before, if you've previously become a lawful permanent resident, then this doesn't affect you at all. So does not have an non-immigrant visa. There's several exclusions or sort of exclusions here that you could cover, but I'll cover those in a few moments. But if you're holding a green card or you've already activated, even if you don't have the physical green card, you've already activated, you're a lawful permanent resident, you're not affected by this ban. Okay, so then let's talk about DV 2020 people and finally DV 2021. For DV 2020, as I say, without this being challenged and removed, it effectively closes down DV 2020 for all remaining cases. Even if the embassies reopen, they're not going to be reissuing. They're not going to be issuing visas, while this ban is in place. Okay, because the issuance of a visa that you cannot use it doesn't make sense, and and they wouldn't operate that way. They just don't operate that way. Okay, DV 2021, same thing. This is going to run through to the end of the year, end of this year, and so that ban will be in place. The first 3 months will probably be lost, which will put pressure on the overall year. What that means, beyond that is unclear at the moment. And I'll talk about the election and that sort of thing in a few moments. But what that will mean to us is unclear. So the only opportunity for DV 2020 candidates and DV 2021 is to hope that the order itself is challenged. As I say, at this point, I have no way to sort of see what the likelihood is of of a successful challenge of this proclamation. All right, nobody knows that right now. It will be challenged. There's no doubt about that. But what the outcome of that will be, I don't know. Okay. All right. So there are a few exclusions. So the scope and suspension and limitation of entry. The suspension limitation on entry pursuant to Section 2 shall only apply to any alien who is outside the USA on the effective date of the proclamation. In other words, if you are in the USA, you can continue your process if you're adjusting status in the USA. But if you're already outside the USA, you can't enter, and you could not file for adjustment of status in theory, because this proclamation should apply to you. So you can't circumvent it by now entering the USA and try and circumvent that. That's what it means. If you don't have a non-immigrant visa that is valid on that date, does not have. So that relates to those H-1Bs, etc. So if you've got a non-immigrant visa, you can enter, but this is very badly worded. This is typical Trump nonsense, frankly. So it shall only apply to any alien who does not have an immigrant visa that is okay. So it doesn't apply to you if you have a non-immigrant visa. So if you've got a B1, does that mean you can get your green card? No, it doesn't mean that. And this is so badly worded as usual that Trump and his team just create confusion because they don't understand the English language very well. So does not have an official travel document, blah blah blah. So it doesn't apply to lawful permanent residents. That's existing green card holders or people that have already activated their status. An alien who is the spouse and child of a USA citizen. Okay, so that keeps the door open for certain visa types. Which is specifically about, certain classes such as sponsoring a child, typically under 21, but sometimes over 21 as well. Then any alien seeking to enter the USA to provide temporary labor or services essential to the USA food supply chain. Interesting. So that's farm workers. Essentially, they're trying to say, we'll continue to allow farm workers to come into the country. And then finally, this sort of catch-all. Now, this catch-all could be interesting to people. Any alien whose entry would be in the national interest as determined by the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Homeland Security, or their respective designees. Now, this is kind of a catch-all that says, okay, if you make a good enough case, there could be a waiver granted based on the national interest. Now, the national interest is a pretty high standard, pretty high bar to meet. But it is possible that some people could be issued with visas, either H1s and J1s, etc., or DV lottery cases, if they can show that they've got some sort of, very, very good reason. Now, it's not because you really, really want it. It's not because, you think you'd be a really good, green card holder, or, it's not something that you think is a good reason. It's something that it would be in the United States national interest. So it needs to be a pretty strong case. Exactly what that case would be, I can't comment. And, I can't help you construct the cases, etc. If you want to talk to a lawyer and see whether you can sort of construct a national interest case, that's one way to do it. Or just go ahead, if embassies reopen, have your interview, which you'll be entitled to, sort of ask them if they can interview you because you want to make a national interest case, right? So that's something you could do. I'm just scanning this. This has been out only a few minutes, so I'm scanning this. I don't think I'm missing anything here. This is the circumvention clause. So if you circumvent it through fraud, blah blah blah, you'll be a priority for removal. In other words, deportation by DHS. Right. Right. Nothing about. This still allows people to seek asylum or refugee status, etc. They're not trying to break any of the international laws right now. Thank you, Trump. and yeah, just scanning this. It's 30 days. This is people got very confused with the 50 days thing from the earlier report, the earlier proclamation. So every 60 days, the Secretary of Homeland Security will provide recommendations to any modifications. That doesn't mean that Trump isn't allowed to extend or modify this himself. It doesn't mean that we've got any sort of right to expect that particular recommendation to have been made. And in the case of the April 22nd, it didn't mean, as we now see, that Trump wasn't free to extend the existing ban, because he's just done exactly that. It was simply that after 50 days, there was going to be a recommendation made. That should have been made. It may or may not have been made. Who knows? Who cares? It doesn't matter at the moment because Trump was free to do whatever he wanted. So that's that. And then this goes into place. This goes into place on June 24th, 2020. This is interesting. Is there actually a one-day gap? Except as provided in Section 1, this proclamation is effective. I don't think that's a gap. I think that might be the April 22nd was effective from April 23rd. That's probably why this is beginning at midnight on the 24th. In other words, it actually covers the period tomorrow. I think I don't think there's a gap there. General, nothing else. Okay, so I'll make sure you've got this link and you can read it for yourself. You can assume what it means, and you can read and decide whether you agree or not with the idea of it. But the reality of it is certainly here. Now let's talk about something else. In November, there's a presidential election. So between now and November, right now, Trump is in big trouble with his popularity. He's not at all popular. And if you just look at 538, 538 is a website which conducts polling, but also aggregates polling from all sorts of polls. So right now, Trump has a disapproval rating in America of 55%. That's extremely high, and an approval rating of 41%. That's extremely low. So only 41% of people approve of the job he's doing. That's almost historically low, and he's likely to go down in history as one of the very few one-term presidents. In other words, my expectation would be that if nothing significant changes between now and November, he should lose the election. If that's the case, we'll have a new president from January 20th of next year, and I would expect a lot of this sort of ban stuff to be overturned at that point, because common sense and smarter heads will prevail. Trump will be gone with a bit of luck, and we can move on with more sensible life. So right now, people who are affected by the travel bans that were implemented before, people in countries such as Yemen and Iran and so on, those people need to wait and see what happens in November. If Trump loses, then those bans could be removed in early 2021, I should say. And so, if I were from Yemen or Iran and I'm wondering whether to take up my DV lottery win, I wouldn't do anything right now, and I would not be submitting the DS-260 until I see what happens in November. Right? And in the same way, this ban is likely to be removed once Trump is gone as our president. Now, of course, Trump could win. Right? I mean, it's possible. There are enough people that like what he's doing and perhaps by some miracle, he's able to do something decent between now and November and gets re-elected. If he does, then he'll continue with this same sort of nonsense. And actually, I'm sure things will get much worse. He'll be banning more people. He'll be doing more aggressive anti-immigration measures. because he's then just been given carte blanche to do whatever he wants at that point if he wins the next election. So I hope to see this country come to its senses in November, and that could have an impact here. And hopefully some smart lawyers are able to attack this, and either Jim Hacking or others that are equally capable and caring will jump on this and try and do something about it. But until then, this is our new reality, and it's a terrible blow. It's a gut punch without a doubt, and we all knew this was a risk, but to actually see it in reality is pretty awful. Anyway, just wanted to get that perspective out there, and good luck to everyone. Let's hope that some smart lawyers can sort this out, and hopefully we'll have some more positive news in the coming weeks. But for now, it's extremely bad news for DV 2020 in particular, and pretty bad news for DV 2021. It's not a good start for DV 2021 either. All right, okay, keep well, everyone. Bye bye.